Jackson Sullivan had worked security at Westbridge Tower for 12 years, and he knew every face that walked through those glass doors. So when the CEO's black sedan pulled up that Tuesday morning with a new driver behind the wheel, something immediately felt wrong. It wasn't just that Richard Hayes, the regular driver, was missing. It was the tattoo. Jackson had seen Hayes roll up his sleeves 100 times, always revealing the same eagle insignia on his left forearm. But this driver? When he reached for the door handle, Jackson spotted it. A scorpion, dark and unmistakable. In that split second, Jackson's instincts screamed danger. Within moments, he had his service weapon drawn and the sedan blocked. What happened next would reveal a kidnapping plot, save CEO Lily Daniels' life, and prove that sometimes a father's protective instincts extend far beyond his own family. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Jackson Sullivan's alarm went off at 4:45 a.m., just like it had every weekday for the past 12 years. He silenced it before the second beep, a habit formed from years of not wanting to wake his daughter, sleeping in the next room. The apartment in Oakmont Heights wasn't fancy, but it was theirs. 3 modest rooms on the 8th floor with a view of the city skyline that looked particularly beautiful during sunrise. He moved quietly through his morning routine. Coffee first, strong and black. Then a quick check of his uniform, navy blue with the Westbridge Tower security patch on the shoulder. Every crease had to be perfect, every button polished. It wasn't vanity, it was discipline. In his line of work, appearance mattered. People judged you in the first 3 seconds, and Jackson had learned long ago that looking sharp meant being taken seriously. By 5:30 a.m., he was out the door, leaving a note on the kitchen counter for his daughter Emma, reminding her about the lasagna in the fridge for dinner and to lock the door when she left for school. She was 16 now, responsible and bright. But he still worried. That was the job description for single fathers, he figured. The worrying never stopped. The commute to Westbridge Tower took 40 minutes by subway, and Jackson used that time to observe. People watching had become second nature to him. The businessman with the nervous tic who always checked his phone every 30 seconds. The college student who fell asleep standing up against the pole. The elderly woman who carried the same purple handbag and always got off at 5th Street. Patterns. Routines. Deviations from those patterns meant something worth noticing. Westbridge Tower stood 60 stories tall in the heart of the financial district, all gleaming glass and polished steel. Jackson had started working there when Emma was just 4 years old, back when his wife Sarah was still alive. Back when life looked completely different. Cancer had taken Sarah 6 years ago, and since then, it had been just him and Emma against the world. The job at Westbridge had been his anchor during those dark months. The routine, the structure, the sense of purpose. It had kept him moving forward when everything else felt like it was falling apart. He arrived at 6:15 a.m., 15 minutes before his shift officially started. That was another habit. Early meant prepared. He relieved the night shift guard, Anthony White, who looked exhausted after a quiet but long 12 hours. "Anything unusual?" Jackson asked, scanning the security logs. "Not a thing," Anthony replied, grabbing his jacket. "Quietest Tuesday night I've had in months. You've got smooth sailing today?" Jackson nodded and settled into his position at the main entrance desk. From here, he could see everything. The lobby stretched out before him, marble floors reflecting the early morning light, the elevator banks on either side, the executive parking garage entrance to his left. His station had 6 monitors showing feeds from cameras throughout the building. Over the years, he'd memorized every angle, every blind spot, every quirk of the system. The morning rush started around 7. Junior executives, administrative assistants, maintenance staff, they all filtered through with their security badges and tired smiles. Jackson greeted most of them by name. That was another thing he prided himself on. Knowing people, not just their faces, but their patterns. Who arrived early, who was always late, who looked stressed, who had just gotten engaged based on the new ring they kept glancing at. At 7:45 a.m., the executive-level staff began arriving. That's when Jackson's attention sharpened even more. The C-suite operated on a different schedule and required a different level of vigilance. These were the people who made decisions worth millions, who had enemies and competitors, who needed protection even if they didn't always realize it. Lily Daniels, the CEO of Westbridge Financial, typically arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. Her routine was clockwork precise. Richard Hayes, her driver for the past 8 years, would pull the black Mercedes sedan up to the executive entrance. He'd step out, walk around, open her door. She'd thank him, he'd nod, and she'd stride through the lobby with the kind of confidence that came from running a billion-dollar company before turning 40. Jackson had crossed paths with Ms. Daniels more than most security guards would with their CEO. 3 years ago, there'd been a suspicious package delivered to her office. Jackson had been the one to evacuate the floor and call the bomb squad. It turned out to be nothing, just a marketing stunt from an overzealous vendor. But Ms. Daniels had personally thanked him afterward. She'd asked about his family, learned about Emma, remembered it the next time they spoke. 6 months ago, there'd been an incident with a disgruntled investor who'd tried to force his way past the security desk, demanding to see her. Jackson had handled it professionally, firmly, preventing the situation from escalating. Ms. Daniels had sent a formal commendation to his supervisor and insisted on a raise for him. They weren't friends exactly, but there was mutual respect. She saw him as more than just another uniform, and he saw her as more than just another executive. In his eyes, part of his job was keeping her safe, even if the threats were usually nothing more than angry emails and the occasional pushy reporter. That Tuesday morning, Jackson was reviewing the weekend security reports when he noticed the time. 7:58 a.m. 2 minutes until Ms. Daniels's arrival. He glanced up at the monitor showing the executive entrance. Right on schedule, the black Mercedes sedan pulled into view. But something was wrong. Jackson's trained eye caught it immediately. The way the car approached was different. Richard Hayes always pulled up smoothly, with practiced precision, stopping exactly 4 feet from the curb. This approach was slightly jerky, the positioning off by at least a foot. Small details, but details mattered. The driver's door opened, and Jackson leaned forward, studying the monitor more carefully. The man who stepped out was wearing Richard's uniform, the standard black suit and tie that all executive drivers wore. He was approximately the same height and build. But something about his movement was wrong. Richard had a slight limp from an old soccer injury, a barely noticeable favor of his right leg. This man moved with even, measured steps. Jackson's hand moved to the radio clipped to his belt, his pulse starting to quicken. The driver walked around the front of the car, his face partially obscured by the angle of the camera. When he reached for the rear door handle, his sleeve rode up slightly. That's when Jackson saw it. The tattoo. Richard Hayes had an eagle tattooed on his left forearm, wings spread wide, a military tribute from his time in the service. Jackson had seen it countless times when Richard would roll up his sleeves on hot summer days. This man's tattoo was completely different. A scorpion, dark and detailed, its tail curved upward in a threatening pose. This wasn't Richard Hayes. Every alarm in Jackson's mind started firing at once. His 12 years of experience, his instincts honed from watching thousands of people every single day, all of it screamed the same thing: danger. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Jackson's hand shot to his radio, even as his eyes remained locked on the monitor. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his training kept his voice steady. Control, this is Sullivan at main entrance. I have a situation developing at executive drop-off. Possible impersonation of authorized driver, requesting immediate backup. The response crackled back within seconds. Copy that, Sullivan. Units are on their way. What's your assessment? Driver is not Richard Hayes. Repeat, driver is not our authorized executive transport. Miss Daniels is in the vehicle. On the monitor, the fake driver's hand was on the rear door handle, about to open it. Lily Daniels would be stepping out any second, completely unaware that something was wrong. Every fiber of Jackson's being screamed at him to move, to act, to do something before it was too late. He bolted from his desk, his hand instinctively moving to the service weapon holstered at his hip. Westbridge Tower's security protocols were clear. Executive protection took priority over everything else. If there was a credible threat to C-suite personnel, armed response was authorized. This was credible. Jackson burst through the interior doors and into the executive entrance area, his weapon drawn but held low, his other hand raised in a commanding gesture. Step away from the vehicle. Hands where I can see them. The driver froze, his hand still on the door handle. For a moment, everything seemed to move in slow motion. Jackson could see the man's face clearly now, features he'd never seen before. Definitely not Richard Hayes. The man's eyes widened, but not with the surprise of someone being wrongly accused. It was the sharp, calculating look of someone whose plan had just been disrupted. Inside the car, Jackson could see Lily Daniels' silhouette through the tinted windows. She was reaching for her briefcase, completely unaware of what was happening just feet away. I said, step away from the vehicle. Do it now. The fake driver's hand moved, but not away from the door. It slipped inside his jacket. That was all Jackson needed to see. Gun. He's going for a weapon. Jackson's voice cut through the morning air as he raised his own weapon to firing position, finger on the trigger guard. Not the trigger itself. Control. Discipline. His instructor's voice echoed in his head from academy training. You point a weapon when you're ready to stop a threat. You fire when there's no other choice. Hands up, now. The driver's hand emerged from his jacket, empty, raised slowly above his head. But his eyes were darting, looking for an escape route, calculating his options. This wasn't over. Behind him, Jackson heard the sound of running feet. Backup was arriving. 2 more security officers, Corey Daniels and Hunter Tate, came around the corner with their weapons drawn. Sullivan, what do we have? Corey called out, positioning himself to create a crossfire if needed. False driver, not Richard Hayes. Unknown subject attempting access to Ms. Daniels. Possible weapon. The rear door of the Mercedes began to open from the inside. Lily Daniels was about to step out into the middle of a potential armed confrontation. Ma'am, stay in the vehicle, Jackson shouted, never taking his eyes off the fake driver. Lock the doors and stay down. There was a moment of confused silence. Then the door closed again. The locks clicked audibly. Good. She was following instructions. The fake driver's jaw clenched. His plan, whatever it had been, was falling apart. He started to lower his hands. "Keep those hands up. Don't even think about it." Hunter moved to flank from the right side, creating a triangle of coverage. By now, a small crowd had gathered inside the lobby, faces pressed against the glass doors, phones out and recording. This would be all over social media within minutes. Jackson didn't care. Let them record. Better a viral video than a tragedy. "On your knees, slowly, hands behind your head." The man hesitated, and for a brief moment, Jackson thought he might try to run. But with 3 weapons trained on him and nowhere to go, the fake driver finally complied. He sank to his knees, hands interlaced behind his head, his face twisted with frustration and anger. Corey moved in quickly, holstering his weapon and pulling out zip-tie restraints. Within seconds, the man's hands were secured behind his back. Hunter patted him down, pulling out a driver's license that definitely didn't say Richard Hayes, a cell phone, and from an ankle holster, a compact 9mm pistol. "Armed," Hunter confirmed, holding up the weapon. "Concealed ankle carry." Jackson felt a cold wave wash over him. He'd been right. This wasn't paranoia or overreaction. This had been a real threat. The sound of sirens filled the air as police units arrived, summoned by control the moment Jackson had called in the situation. Within minutes, the executive entrance was flooded with officers. The fake driver was hauled to his feet and walked toward a patrol car, his rights being read to him as he went. Jackson finally allowed himself to lower his weapon, engaging the safety and holstering it. His hands were steady, but he could feel the adrenaline starting to ebb, leaving behind the familiar shakiness that always came after a critical incident. A detective approached, badge already out. "I'm Detective Miles Bowen. You're the one who called this in?" "Jackson Sullivan, head of day security." "That man is not our authorized driver. Richard Hayes has been Miss Daniels' driver for 8 years. I know him. That's not him." "What made you suspicious?" "His tattoo was wrong. Hayes has an eagle on his left forearm. That man has a scorpion. Different movement patterns, too. Wrong approach to the curb, no limp. Hayes has a distinctive gait from an old injury." Detective Bowen's eyebrows rose. "You noticed all that from inside?" "It's my job to notice, Detective." The rear door of the Mercedes finally opened again. Lily Daniels stepped out, her face pale but composed. She looked at the scene around her, the police cars, the restrained suspect being loaded into a cruiser, Jackson standing with his hand still resting on his holstered weapon. She walked directly to him, her heels clicking on the pavement. "Mr. Sullivan." Her voice was controlled, but he could hear the slight tremor underneath. "What just happened?" "That wasn't Richard Hayes, ma'am. I don't know who he was or what his intentions were. But he was armed, and he wasn't your regular driver." She studied his face for a long moment, and then glanced at the police hauling the suspect away. "Where is Richard? My real driver?" "That's what we need to find out, ma'am. Right now, I need you to come inside where we can ensure your safety until we understand the full scope of this situation." Detective Bowen stepped forward. "Ms. Daniels, I'm going to need to ask you some questions. Do you have any idea who might want to harm you? Any recent threats, disputes, terminated employees with grudges?" Lily Daniels looked back at Jackson one more time. "He saved my life, didn't he?" "Possibly, ma'am," Detective Bowen replied. "We won't know the full extent until we question the suspect and locate your real driver." The next 2 hours turned Westbridge Tower into a crime scene. Police detectives moved through the executive floor, interviewing staff and reviewing security footage. The entire building had been placed on modified lockdown, with employees allowed to leave, but no one permitted to enter without verification. Jackson sat in a conference room on the 45th floor, giving his statement to Detective Bowen for the third time. Every detail mattered. What time he'd first noticed the discrepancy, exactly what he'd observed, his decision-making process, the timeline of his response. "You've got impressive instincts, Mr. Sullivan," Detective Bowen said, closing his notebook. "Most people wouldn't have caught something like a tattoo difference from a security monitor. Most people aren't responsible for protecting 4,000 employees and executives," Jackson replied. "In this job, you learn to see patterns. When something breaks the pattern, you pay attention." A knock on the conference room door interrupted them. Another detective entered, this one looking urgent. "Bowen, we found the real driver. He's alive." Relief flooded through Jackson's chest. "Where?" "Storage unit facility about 6 miles from here. Tied up, blindfolded, but unharmed. He's being transported to the hospital for evaluation now, but he's talking. Says he was ambushed this morning when he went to pick up the car from the garage. 2 men, they knocked him out, took his uniform and credentials." Detective Bowen stood up. "2 men? We only have 1 in custody. That's the problem. There's an accomplice still out there." The words hung in the air, like a physical threat. Jackson's mind immediately went to Lily Daniels. Where is Miss Daniels right now? In her office with 2 patrol officers stationed outside. That's not enough. Jackson was already moving toward the door. If there's a second person involved in this, they might try another approach. He didn't wait for permission. His security clearance gave him access to every floor in the building, and he used it now, heading straight for the executive suite on the 60th floor. Detective Bowen followed, along with 3 other officers. The elevator ride felt impossibly long. Jackson's mind raced through possibilities. A coordinated attack on a CEO meant serious planning. This wasn't a random crime of opportunity. Someone had put resources into this. Time, money, intelligence gathering. The question was why. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, and immediately Jackson knew something was wrong. The reception desk was empty. It should never be empty during business hours. His hand moved to his weapon. "Detective," he said quietly, gesturing toward the abandoned desk. Bowen saw it too and signaled his officers to spread out. They moved down the hallway with weapons drawn, clearing each office systematically. Jackson led them toward Lily Daniels' corner office at the end of the corridor. The 2 patrol officers who were supposed to be stationed outside her door were nowhere to be seen. Jackson's blood ran cold. He pressed himself against the wall beside the door, listening. He could hear voices inside. One was definitely Lily Daniels. But there was another voice, male, speaking in low, threatening tones. Detective Bowen positioned his team. 1 officer moved to the opposite side of the door. 2 more took positions further back to provide cover. Bowen looked at Jackson and mouthed, "On 3." Jackson nodded. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. This was what training was for. This was why he'd spent 12 years perfecting his skills, staying sharp, staying ready. Bowen counted silently with his fingers. 1, 2, 3. The door burst open, and they flooded into the office. The scene inside made Jackson's training take over completely. A man in maintenance coveralls had Lily Daniels backed against the window, one hand gripping her arm. He wasn't holding a weapon, but his other hand was raised in a threatening gesture. The 2 patrol officers were on the floor, unconscious but breathing, cable ties binding their hands. "Police, let her go." The man spun, his eyes wide with panic. For a moment, he looked like he might try to use Lily as a shield. But then he saw 4 weapons pointed at him, and his shoulders sagged in defeat. "It's over," Detective Bowen said firmly. "Step away from her. Now." The man released Lily's arm and raised his hand slowly. She immediately moved away from him, crossing the office to stand behind the protective wall of officers. Her composure was cracking now, her breath coming in short gasps. Jackson kept his weapon trained on the suspect as other officers moved in to restrain him. Only when the man was in handcuffs and being read his rights did Jackson lower his gun. "Miss Daniels, are you hurt?" She shook her head, unable to speak for a moment. When she finally found her voice, it was barely a whisper. "He said he was here to fix the air conditioning. I didn't even question it." Then he disabled the officers outside and locked the door. The maintenance worker, now secured, glared at them with pure hatred. "You have no idea what she's done, what that company has done." "Save it for your lawyer," Detective Bowen said coldly, nodding for the officers to remove him. As they led the second suspect away, paramedics arrived to check on the unconscious patrol officers. Both were starting to come around, groggy but responsive. They'd been hit with some kind of fast-acting sedative, likely administered through a taser or dart. Detective Bowen turned to Lily Daniels. "Miss Daniels, I think it's time you told us if there's any reason someone would go to these lengths to get to you." She sat down heavily in her desk chair, her usual confidence shattered. "There's a lawsuit, a class action, environmental contamination from one of our subsidiary companies. We've been fighting it for 2 years. It's worth hundreds of millions. Anyone make direct threats? Dozens of them. My lawyers have been forwarding them to the FBI. But most of them are just angry emails, people venting. I never thought anyone would actually try something like this." Jackson holstered his weapon and moved to check the window, making sure there were no other threats. From 60 floors up, the city spread out below like a map. Millions of people going about their lives, completely unaware of how close they'd just come to a major tragedy. "Mr. Sullivan?" He turned to find Lily Daniels looking at him with an expression he'd never seen on her face before. Vulnerability mixed with profound gratitude. "You saved my life. Twice in one day. Just doing my job, ma'am." "No." She shook her head firmly. "Your job is to check badges and monitor cameras. You went beyond that. You noticed what no one else would have noticed. You acted when others might have hesitated. You didn't stop even after the first suspect was caught. That's not just doing a job. That's something else entirely." Jackson didn't know what to say to that. He'd just been following his instincts, the same instincts that had kept his daughter safe all these years. The same protective drive that made him watch strangers on the subway and memorize patterns in his building. Detective Bowen closed his notebook and looked at Jackson with newfound respect. "Sullivan, we're going to need you to come down to the station to give a full statement once things settle here." But off the record, that was some damn fine security work. The police station downtown was a stark contrast to the gleaming towers of the financial district. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a harsh, institutional glow. Jackson sat in an interview room, his third cup of coffee growing cold on the table in front of him. He'd been here for 4 hours, going over every detail of the incident again and again. Detective Bowen entered with a thick file folder and a grim expression. "We've been interrogating both suspects. You're going to want to hear this." Jackson straightened in his chair, his fatigue momentarily forgotten. The man in the car was named Travis Kemp. The one who got into Miss Daniels' office was his brother, Nathan Kemp. Both of them lost their father 18 months ago. Cancer. Pancreatic cancer, specifically. "I'm sorry to hear that," Jackson said carefully, sensing there was more to the story. Their father, Robert Kemp, worked for 32 years at Holbrook Chemical Manufacturing. That's the subsidiary company Ms. Daniels mentioned, the one with the environmental lawsuit. Robert and 47 other workers were exposed to toxic chemicals for years. No proper safety equipment, no warnings, no monitoring. The company knew about the contamination and buried the reports. The pieces were starting to come together in Jackson's mind. They blamed Westbridge Financial for their father's death. More than blamed. According to their statements, they hold Miss Daniels personally responsible. Westbridge acquired Holbrook Chemical 3 years ago. The Kemp brothers believed that if they could get to her, they could force a settlement that would compensate all the families, or at least get justice for what happened to their father. Jackson leaned back in his chair, processing this information. So this wasn't about ransom or corporate espionage. This was about revenge. Revenge and desperation, Detective Bowen confirmed. Nathan Kemp kept saying during his interview that nobody was listening, that they'd tried everything legal, every proper channel, and nothing was happening. So they decided to take matters into their own hands. What was their actual plan? Travis was supposed to drive Ms. Daniels to a remote location. Nathan would meet them there. They were going to force her to sign documents admitting corporate knowledge of the contamination and agreeing to full compensation for all affected families. They had cameras set up, planning to live stream it and release it to the media before anyone could stop them. Jackson shook his head slowly. That's not how justice works. No, it's not. But when people feel powerless, when they feel like the system has failed them, they do desperate things. Doesn't make it right, but it makes it understandable. A heavy silence settled over the room. Jackson thought about his own life, about losing Sarah to cancer, about the medical bills that had nearly bankrupted him, about the nights he'd lain awake wondering if he could have done something differently, gotten her better treatment, caught it earlier. He understood rage born from loss. He understood the desire to make someone pay when the universe felt unbearably unfair. But he also understood that violence solved nothing, that crossing that line meant destroying yourself in the process of trying to destroy others. What happens to them now? Jackson asked. Multiple felonies. Kidnapping, assault on police officers, attempted kidnapping of Miss Daniels, weapons charges. They're looking at serious prison time. And the lawsuit? The environmental contamination case? Detective Bowen closed the file folder. That's above my pay grade. But between you and me, this incident is going to shine a spotlight on that case like nothing else could. Every news outlet in the country is going to be digging into it now. Sometimes the wrong way to get attention accidentally becomes the right way to get justice. Jackson stood up, his muscles stiff from sitting so long. Am I free to go? Yeah, we have everything we need for now. You'll probably have to testify when this goes to trial, but that won't be for months. Sullivan, I meant what I said earlier. You did exceptional work today. Have you ever considered a career in law enforcement? I have a daughter to raise, and a steady job that lets me be home for dinner most nights. That's worth more to me than any career change. Detective Bowen nodded with understanding. Fair enough. Go home, get some rest. You've earned it. The sun was setting as Jackson finally left the police station. He checked his phone and found 17 missed calls and 36 text messages. Most were from Emma, increasingly worried about why he wasn't answering. A few were from colleagues at Westbridge, and 3 were from a number he didn't recognize. He called Emma first. "Dad. Oh my God, where have you been? I saw the news. They're saying there was an attempted kidnapping at your building and that a security guard stopped it, and I couldn't reach you and I was freaking out." "I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm fine. I've been at the police station giving statements. I'm on my way home now." "Was it you? Were you the guard they're talking about?" Jackson hesitated, then decided there was no point in lying. "Yeah, it was me." There was a long pause on the other end. Then, in a quieter voice, "You stopped someone from kidnapping your CEO?" "Something like that." "Dad, that's insane. That's like action movie stuff. Are you sure you're okay? You're not hurt?" "Not a scratch on me, I promise. I'll tell you all about it when I get home. Have you eaten?" "Dad, I'm not worried about dinner right now. You were in a dangerous situation. And I'm trained for dangerous situations. It's going to be fine, Emma. I'll be home in about an hour. We'll talk then." After hanging up with his daughter, Jackson checked the unknown number messages. All 3 were from Lily Daniels. "Mr. Sullivan, this is Lily Daniels. I wanted to thank you again and make sure you're all right. Please call me when you can. Mr. Sullivan, I've spoken with our board of directors. We'd like to discuss your future with the company. I hope you'll take my call." "Jackson, please, I need to know you're okay. What happened today was extraordinary, and I don't just mean professionally. Call me." It was unusual for a CEO to use an employee's first name. Even more unusual for her to sign a text message with just her first name. The informal tone suggested this had become personal for her too. Jackson called the number. She answered on the first ring. "Jackson, thank God. Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Miss Daniels. Just finished giving my statement to the police. I'm heading home now. I won't keep you long, but I need you to know something. What you did today went so far beyond the call of duty that I don't even have adequate words for it. You saved my life twice. You noticed details that nobody else would have caught. You put yourself in harm's way without hesitation. Ma'am, I was just doing my job." "Stop saying that," she said, and there was emotion in her voice now. "I've been the CEO of this company for 6 years. I've had security details, bodyguards, threat assessments. But today, the person who kept me alive was someone who noticed a tattoo was wrong. Someone who trusted his instincts over protocol. Someone who had the courage to act." Jackson didn't know how to respond to that, so he stayed quiet. Lily continued, her voice steadier now. "I want you to take the rest of the week off. Paid, obviously. Spend time with your daughter. Process what happened. And then I want you to meet with me and our head of corporate security. Because I have a proposition for you. And I think you're going to want to hear it." "What kind of proposition?" "The kind we should discuss in person. Can you come to my office Monday morning? 9 a.m. Jackson thought about it for a moment. Whatever she was planning, it sounded significant. Life-changing even. And after 12 years of the same routine, the same position, the same steady but unremarkable path, maybe a change wasn't such a bad thing. "I'll be there," he said. Emma was waiting at the door when Jackson got home, and she practically tackled him with a hug the moment he stepped inside. For someone who usually acted too cool for displays of affection, she clung to him like she had when she was little. "I'm okay," he said softly, wrapping his arms around her. "I promise, I'm okay. They're calling you a hero on the news. It's all over Twitter. There are videos of you holding a gun on that guy. Dad, You look so intense in them. Come on, let's sit down. I'll tell you what happened. They settled on the couch, and Jackson walked her through the entire day. He didn't sugarcoat it, but he also didn't dramatize it. Just the facts, presented clearly and calmly. Emma listened with wide eyes, interrupting occasionally with questions. So, you just knew something was wrong because of a tattoo? The tattoo was part of it. But it was more than that. It was the way he moved, the way he approached the car. Little things that didn't match the pattern I'd observed hundreds of times before. Your brain picks up on inconsistencies even when you're not consciously looking for them. That's amazing, Dad. Like, genuinely amazing. I always knew you were good at your job, but I didn't realize you were that observant. Jackson smiled slightly. Well, I've had a lot of practice watching someone who tries to sneak cookies before dinner when she thinks I'm not paying attention. Emma laughed, some of the tension finally leaving her shoulders. Okay, fair. But seriously, what happens now? Are you in trouble? Could those guys try to come after you? They're in custody, and they're not getting out. As for what happens now, your guess is as good as mine. Miss Daniels wants to meet with me Monday morning. Said she has a proposition. Like a promotion? Maybe, I don't know. But whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. You and me, like always. Emma was quiet for a moment, then said, Mom would have been proud of you today. The words hit Jackson unexpectedly hard. He had to swallow past the sudden tightness in his throat before he could respond. Yeah, I think she would have been. They ordered pizza for dinner, Emma's favorite with extra cheese and pepperoni, and spent the evening deliberately not watching the news coverage. Instead, they watched an old comedy movie they'd seen a dozen times before, quoting the lines they knew by heart and just being present with each other. Later that night, after Emma had gone to bed, Jackson sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, thinking about the Kemp brothers, about Robert Kemp, dead from cancer caused by corporate negligence, about two sons driven to desperate acts by grief and rage, and the feeling that nobody was listening. He thought about his own experience with cancer, watching Sarah deteriorate over 18 brutal months. The helplessness, the fury at a disease that couldn't be reasoned with or fought with any conventional weapon. The desperate bargaining with a universe that didn't bargain back. If someone had told him back then that a corporation's negligence had caused Sarah's cancer, that profits had been prioritized over safety, that the truth had been deliberately hidden, would he have done something different? Would he have been driven to the same desperate measures as the Kemp brothers? He wanted to think he wouldn't. But he understood the temptation. He understood how grief could transform into rage, and rage into action that crossed lines that shouldn't be crossed. His phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Lily Daniels again. I've been thinking about what happened today. Not just the danger, but what you said to Detective Bowen about the Kemp brothers' father, about the lawsuit. I've spent the evening reading through the case files. Really reading them, not just the summaries my lawyers provided. You deserve to know that I'm horrified by what I found. We need to talk about this too. Monday. Jackson stared at the message for a long time before responding simply, Okay. The weekend passed in a strange blur. News vans camped outside Westbridge Tower, though they couldn't get to Jackson's apartment in Oakmont Heights. Reporters called his phone constantly until he finally turned it off. Emma showed him the social media coverage, hashtags trending about corporate security and attempted kidnappings, and debates about whether the Kemp brothers were villains or victims. People are really divided on this, Emma said, scrolling through Twitter threads. Some people are saying they're terrorists who deserve maximum sentences. Others are saying they're desperate people pushed too far by a system that doesn't care about workers. What do you think? Jackson asked. Emma considered the question seriously. I think they were wrong to do what they did. Like, obviously wrong. You can't kidnap people. But I also think I understand why they felt like they had no other choice. Does that make sense? Yeah, Jackson said quietly. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Saturday afternoon, a delivery arrived at their apartment. A massive flower arrangement, so large it barely fit through the door, with a card that read, "With profound gratitude, Lily Daniels." Emma made fun of how fancy it was, but Jackson caught her taking pictures of it to send to her friends. Sunday evening, Jackson pressed his best suit, the one he wore to parent-teacher conferences and the rare formal event. Whatever Lily wanted to discuss tomorrow, he wanted to look professional, prepared, ready for whatever came next. Emma noticed him checking his reflection in the mirror and came to stand in the doorway of his bedroom. "You look good, Dad." Very professional security director or whatever fancy title she's going to offer you. "I'm not a director. I'm head of day shift security at one tower." "For now," Emma said with a knowing smile. "But I bet that changes tomorrow." Monday morning arrived bright and cold. Jackson took the subway to Westbridge Tower, arriving at 8:30 a.m., even though the meeting wasn't until 9. Old habits. He was waved through security by Corey Daniels, who greeted him like a returning hero. "Man, the whole department has been talking about what you did. You made us all look good." "I just got lucky and noticed something off." "Don't sell yourself short, Sullivan. You saved her life. That's not luck, that's skill." The executive elevator felt strange without his security uniform. He was wearing civilian clothes, the pressed suit and a tie Emma had helped him pick out. As the numbers climbed toward 60, Jackson felt his nerves building. Whatever was about to happen would change things. He could feel it. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, and he was immediately greeted by a woman he didn't recognize. Professional, polished, wearing an expensive suit, and carrying a tablet. "Mr. Sullivan, I'm Clara Jennings, Ms. Daniels' executive assistant. She's expecting you. Please follow me." They walked down the now familiar corridor to Lily's office. The door was open, and she was standing by the window, looking out at the city below. She turned when she heard them approach, and Jackson was struck by how different she looked from the terrified woman he'd protected just days ago. She was back in control, back in command. But there was something else in her expression now. Something that looked like resolve. "Jackson, thank you for coming. Please, have a seat." Lily Daniels gestured to the leather chairs arranged around a small conference table near the window. Jackson sat, acutely aware of how surreal this moment was. A week ago, he'd been checking badges at a security desk. Now he was in the CEO's office, being served coffee by an executive assistant. Clara excused herself, closing the door behind her. Lily sat across from Jackson, her hands folded on the table, her expression serious. "Before we talk about your future, I need to tell you about some decisions I've made regarding the past." Jackson waited, sensing this was important. "I spent the entire weekend reviewing the Holbrook chemical case. Not the sanitized versions my legal team provided, but the raw evidence, the internal memos, the safety reports that were ignored, the cost-benefit analyses that valued profits over human lives." She paused, her jaw tight. "It made me sick, Jackson. Physically sick. I can imagine. When Westbridge acquired Holbrook 3 years ago, I trusted the due diligence process. I trusted my team when they said the environmental concerns were overblown, that the lawsuits were frivolous. I was wrong to trust blindly. I should have looked deeper. You can't personally investigate every acquisition. Jackson said carefully. No, but I can take responsibility when I discover the truth. This morning, I'm announcing that Westbridge Financial will settle the class action lawsuit. Full compensation for all affected workers and their families. Medical monitoring for anyone who was exposed. An independent audit of all safety practices at every subsidiary we own. And a personal apology from me. Jackson leaned back in his chair, genuinely surprised. That's going to cost the company millions. Hundreds of millions, actually. The board fought me on it all weekend. 3 directors threatened to resign. I told them they were welcome to, but this was happening regardless. She met his eyes steadily. Robert Kemp and 47 other people died because of negligence that happened on my company's watch. His sons were driven to commit crimes because they felt unheard. That ends now. That's a brave decision. It's the right decision. But it's also strategically smart. The media attention from Thursday's incident means this story isn't going away. We can either be the company that fought transparency and lost in court, or we can be the company that did the right thing when confronted with the truth. I prefer the latter. Jackson nodded slowly, impressed by her pragmatism as much as her ethics. So, where do I fit into all of this? Lily opened a folder on the table and slid a document across to him. I'm creating a new position at Westbridge. Executive Director of Security and Risk Assessment. The job would be to oversee all security operations across every property we own, manage threat assessment, and most importantly, be a direct line to my office for any concerns about safety or ethical issues. Jackson scanned the document, his eyes widening as he saw the salary figure. It was more than triple what he currently made. The benefits package included full coverage for Emma's college tuition, comprehensive health insurance, and a substantial signing bonus. This is generous, Ms. Daniels. Very generous. You deserve it. But I'm not offering you this position just because of what happened Thursday. I'm offering it because of how you approached Thursday. You noticed what others missed. You acted decisively when action was needed. You didn't hesitate to put yourself at risk to protect someone else. Those are the qualities I need in someone I trust with this level of responsibility. I've never managed security on this scale before. I'm head of day shift at one building. And you excel at it. You know every person who walks through those doors. You understand patterns, threats, vulnerabilities. That kind of attention to detail scales up. Besides, you'd have a full team supporting you. This isn't about technical expertise. It's about judgment and instinct. You've proven you have both. Jackson set the document down, his mind racing. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. Financial security for him and Emma. A chance to do meaningful work at a higher level. Recognition for years of dedication and skill. But it was also a massive responsibility. Traveling to different properties, longer hours, more stress, less predictability. Emma was 16 now, increasingly independent. But she still needed him, especially with college approaching in 2 years. Can I ask you something personal, Ms. Daniels? Of course. Why does this matter so much to you? Not just the job offer, but the settlement, the changes you're making. You could have handled this quietly, let your lawyers manage it, minimize the financial impact. Instead, you're taking full responsibility publicly. Why? Lily was quiet for a moment, looking out the window at the city below. My father started Westbridge Financial 40 years ago, built it from nothing into what it is today. He died 3 years ago, right before we acquired Holbrook. I've spent every day since trying to live up to his legacy, to prove I deserved this position, not because I was his daughter, but because I was capable. She turned back to Jackson. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that his legacy wasn't just about profits and growth. It was about integrity. He used to say that a company's character is revealed not in success, but in how it handles failure. When confronted with mistakes at Holbrook, I could hide behind lawyers and legal strategies. Or I could handle it the way my father would have, with honesty and accountability. He sounds like he was a good man. He was. And Thursday, when I was trapped in my own office with someone who blamed me for his father's death, I realized something. The Kemp brothers lost their father to corporate negligence. They were willing to throw their lives away because they felt that injustice demanded a response. I can't bring Robert Kemp back, but I can make sure his death meant something. That the system changes, that other families don't suffer the same loss. Jackson understood then that this wasn't just about business or liability management. This was personal for her, just as protecting people had always been personal for him. "I need some time to think about the offer," he said, "to talk to my daughter. This would be a big change for both of us. Take all the time you need. The position isn't going anywhere, and neither are you. Whatever you decide, you'll always have a place at Westbridge." They stood, and Lily extended her hand. Jackson shook it, feeling the firm grip of someone who'd been tested and emerged stronger. "One more thing," Lily said as he turned to leave. "I spoke with the district attorney this morning about the Kemp brothers. I'm not pressing charges for the attempted kidnapping. They'll still face consequences for what they did to Richard Hayes and the police officers. But I won't add to their sentences. They've suffered enough, and so has their family." Jackson smiled slightly. "Your father would be proud of you, Ms. Daniels." "I hope so. And Jackson, call me Lily. If we're going to be working together at this level, we might as well drop the formalities." As Jackson left the office and headed back down to the lobby, he pulled out his phone and texted Emma. "Big news. Let's talk tonight over dinner. Your choice of restaurant." Her response came immediately. "OMG, what happened? Did you get promoted? Are we rich now?" He smiled and typed back, "Something like that. We'll figure it out together." Jackson took Emma to Salvatore's, an Italian restaurant they reserved for special occasions. Birthdays, good report cards, milestones worth celebrating. The moment they sat down, Emma leaned forward with barely contained excitement. "Okay, spill. What happened? You're being all mysterious and it's killing me." Jackson pulled out the folder Lily had given him and slid it across the table. Emma opened it, her eyes scanning the document. He watched her expression change from curiosity to shock, to something that looked almost like pride. "Dad, this salary, this is insane. This is like life-changing money." "It's a significant increase, yes." "Significant? Dad, this is more than 3 times what you make now. And they're offering to pay for my college? Full tuition?" She looked up from the document, her eyes wide. "You said yes, right? Please tell me you said yes." I told her I needed to think about it, to talk to you first. Emma set the folder down, her expression suddenly serious. "Why would you need to think about it? This is everything you've worked for. Recognition, better pay, actual career advancement instead of just being stuck in the same position forever." "Because it's not just about me, Emma. This job would mean longer hours, more travel, more stress. I'd be overseeing security at multiple properties, not just Westbridge Tower. There would be late nights emergency calls, times when I couldn't be home for dinner. I'm 16, Dad. I can handle you working late sometimes. I know you can. But that's not the point. We've had a routine for years now. A good routine. I don't want to mess that up just for a bigger paycheck. Emma reached across the table and took his hand, a gesture so reminiscent of her mother that it made Jackson's heart ache. Dad, you've spent my entire life putting me first, making sure I was okay, that I had everything I needed, that you were always there when I needed you. And I love you for that. But it's okay to do something for yourself too. This isn't about me. It's about us. Then let me tell you what I think about us. I think you're amazing at what you do. I think you notice something nobody else would have noticed, and you save someone's life because of it. I think you've earned this opportunity 100 times over, and I think Mom would want you to take it. Jackson felt his throat tighten at the mention of Sarah. Your mom always said that family came first. And you've proved that every single day for the past 6 years. But Dad, this job offer isn't going to take you away from me. You'll still be living in the same apartment. We'll still have dinner together most nights. You'll still help me with my homework and embarrass me in front of my friends and all the normal dad stuff. The only difference is you'll be doing work that challenges you, that uses all your skills, that pays you what you're actually worth. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best. Emma squeezed his hand. Take the job, Dad. You deserve this. The waiter arrived with their food, and they spent the rest of dinner talking about what the new position would mean practically. Emma had questions about everything. Would he need to buy new suits? Would he get an office? Would he have people working under him? Her enthusiasm was infectious, and Jackson found himself getting excited about possibilities he'd been too cautious to fully consider. After dinner, they walked through the neighborhood, the autumn air crisp and cool. Emma linked her arm through his, something she hadn't done since she was little. Can I tell you something? She said quietly. Always. Sometimes I worry that you've put your whole life on hold because of me. That you don't date or have hobbies or do anything for yourself because you think you have to be this perfect single dad who sacrifices everything for his kid. Jackson stopped walking, turning to face her. Emma, you're not a burden. You've never been a burden. Being your father is the best thing I've ever done. I know that. But Dad, I'm going to college in 2 years. And then what? You'll be alone in that apartment, still working the same security desk, still living the exact same routine you've had for over a decade. That scares me. I want you to have a life beyond being my dad. I have a life. You have a routine. There's a difference. She looked up at him with Sarah's eyes, so earnest and caring. Take the job. Build something for yourself. Because in 2 years, when I leave for college, I want to know that you're okay, that you have purpose and challenge and growth, not just an empty apartment and the same old security desk. They started walking again, and Jackson thought about what she'd said. He'd been so focused on stability, on maintaining the safe routine that had gotten them through Sarah's death and its aftermath, that he hadn't considered what came next. Emma was right. She was growing up, building her own life. Maybe it was time for him to do the same. When they got home, Jackson went to the small desk in the corner of the living room where he kept important documents. He pulled out an old photo album, one he hadn't opened in months. Pictures of Sarah, of their early years together, of Emma as a baby. Near the back, he found the photo he was looking for. It was from a company picnic at his old job before Sarah got sick. She was laughing at something, her head thrown back, pure joy on her face. On the back, in her handwriting, were words he'd forgotten. So proud of my ambitious husband. Keep reaching for more. He'd taken the safe path after she died, the stable, predictable job that let him be present for Emma. There was no shame in that choice. It had been the right decision at the time. But maybe Emma was right. Maybe it was okay to want more now, to reach for more. Jackson pulled out his phone and composed a text to Lily Daniels. I've thought about your offer. I'd like to accept the position. When do I start? The response came, within minutes, even though it was after 10 p.m. Welcome to the executive team, Jackson. Report to HR on Wednesday to finalize paperwork. Your first official day will be the following Monday. And thank you for saying yes. You won't regret this. Emma appeared in the doorway, toothbrush in hand. Did you text her? I accepted the job. She grinned, rushed over, and hugged him tightly. Good. Now I can tell all my friends that my dad is basically a corporate executive. That's way cooler than head of day shift security. I'm glad my career choices improve your social standing. Hey, I take my wins where I can get them. She pulled back, suddenly serious again. I'm really proud of you, Dad. For saving Ms. Daniels, for getting this opportunity, for being brave enough to take it, even though change is scary. When did you become the parent in this relationship? Someone has to keep you on track. She kissed his cheek and headed toward the bathroom. Don't stay up too late. Big executive types need their beauty sleep. After she'd gone to bed, Jackson sat on the couch with a cup of tea thinking about the path that had led him here. 12 years at the same job. 12 years of watching, learning, perfecting his craft. All of it building toward a moment when those skills would matter in a way he'd never anticipated. He thought about the Kemp brothers, sitting in jail cells. Their attempt at justice having failed spectacularly. He thought about Robert Kemp, dying from exposure to chemicals that could have been prevented with proper safety measures. He thought about Lily Daniels, making the difficult choice to take responsibility and pay the cost of past mistakes. Everyone in this story had been changed by what happened last Thursday. The question was whether those changes would lead to growth or destruction. Jackson picked up his phone again and searched for information about the Holbrook chemical case. The news was already reporting on Westbridge Financial's decision to settle. The coverage was surprisingly positive, praising Lily's transparency and the company's willingness to make things right. Several articles mentioned that the decision came after an attempted kidnapping that had exposed the depth of anger surrounding the case. One article included interviews with affected families. Many expressed relief that they'd finally be compensated, that their loved ones' suffering would be acknowledged. A few mentioned the Kemp brothers specifically, saying they understood the desperation even if they didn't condone the methods. It was messy and complicated, the way real life always was. No clear villains or heroes, just people making choices under impossible circumstances and living with the consequences. Jackson's phone buzzed with another text. This one was from Corey Daniels, his colleague from the security desk. Heard you're moving up to the executive floor. Congrats, man. You earned it. Drinks on you when you get your first executive paycheck. He smiled and replied, Deal. But I'm still buying the first round this week. Old habits. As Jackson finally headed to bed, he passed Emma's room and saw her light was still on. He knocked gently. Come in. She was sitting up in bed, laptop open, clearly supposed to be doing homework, but probably on social media. Everything okay? He asked. Yeah. I was just thinking about what you said at dinner. about how this changes things for us? Having second thoughts about me taking the job? No, the opposite actually. I was thinking about how this is kind of perfect timing. You get this amazing opportunity right when I'm old enough to not need you hovering over me every second. It's like the universe finally decided to cut you some slack. The universe and I aren't exactly on speaking terms. Maybe you should be. Because from where I'm sitting, things are starting to look pretty good for the Sullivan family. Jackson sat on the edge of her bed, like he used to when she was little, and wanted him to stay until she fell asleep. You really think your mom would be okay with this? With me taking on more responsibility, being less available? Dad, Mom died when I was 10. I don't remember everything about her, but I remember she was always pushing you to dream bigger. She'd be thrilled that you finally listened. She was good at that, pushing me to be better. She was good at a lot of things, including choosing someone to build a life with. Emma closed her laptop and set it aside. Now go to bed. You have a big week ahead of you, Mr. Executive Director. Wednesday morning, Jackson walked into the HR department on the 23rd floor of Westbridge Tower, feeling distinctly out of place. He was still in his security uniform since he hadn't officially transitioned to the new role yet. But everyone seemed to know who he was and why he was there. Clara Jennings, Lily's executive assistant, met him at the reception desk. Good morning, Jackson. Ready for the whirlwind? As ready as I'll ever be. She led him through a maze of cubicles to a corner office where the director of human resources, a sharp-eyed woman named Edith Walsh, was waiting with a stack of paperwork that looked intimidating. Mr. Sullivan, welcome. Please sit down. We have quite a bit to cover. The next 3 hours were a blur of forms, policies, benefit selections, and orientation materials. Edith walked him through the executive compensation package, explaining stock options and performance bonuses and retirement matching that made his head spin. This was a completely different world from the hourly wage and basic benefits he'd been operating under for the past 12 years. You'll also need to complete executive leadership training, Edith explained, sliding another folder across the desk. It's a 2-week intensive program that covers management strategy, crisis communication, corporate governance, and legal compliance. Classes are held at our training facility upstate. 2 weeks? I can't be away from home for 2 weeks. Actually, the program is designed for working professionals. It's structured as long weekends, 4 sessions over the next 2 months. Friday afternoon through Sunday evening. Your daughter would only be without you for a couple of nights at a time? Jackson relaxed slightly. That was more manageable. Okay. When does it start? First session is next weekend, if you're available. The sooner you complete the training, the sooner you can take full operational control of your new department. After HR, Clara walked him up to the 60th floor to see his new office. It was located 3 doors down from Lily's, a corner space with windows overlooking the city, a massive desk, a conference table, and enough room for a small seating area. This is temporary, Clara said, noting his stunned expression. Once the renovations are complete on 58, the entire security operations center will be relocated there. You'll have a proper command center with monitoring stations, tactical planning rooms, and a full staff. But for now, this will be your base. Jackson walked to the window, looking out at the skyline. From this height, the city looked different. Smaller somehow, more manageable. He could see Oakmont Heights in the distance, the building where Emma was probably sitting in English class right now, completely unaware that her father was standing in an executive office trying not to panic. Overwhelming? Clara asked kindly. A little bit, yeah. That's normal, But Lily has complete confidence in you, and her instincts are usually right. You saved her life. Now she's giving you the tools to save others. The rest of the week was a crash course in corporate executive life. Jackson met with the heads of every department, learning the organizational structure and understanding how security intersected with operations, finance, legal, and facilities management. He sat in on executive meetings, taking notes furiously and trying to keep up with discussions about quarterly projections and strategic initiatives. Hunter Tate, who'd been acting as interim head of security, showed him the current protocols and systems in place. Hunter had 15 years of experience and could have easily been resentful about being passed over for the promotion. But instead, he was gracious and supportive. "Honestly, Sullivan, you're the right person for this job," Hunter said as they reviewed the security infrastructure. "I'm good at executing procedures, but you think differently. You see patterns. That's what this role needs." "I'm going to need your help," Jackson admitted. "There's so much I don't know about managing operations at this scale." "And you'll learn. But here's the thing about security work. All the technical knowledge in the world doesn't matter if you don't have the instinct to know when something's wrong. You've got that in spades. The rest is just logistics." By Friday afternoon, Jackson's head was spinning with information, protocols, policies, personnel files, threat assessments, emergency procedures. He'd filled an entire notebook with notes and still felt like he was barely scratching the surface. Lily called him into her office at the end of the day. "How are you holding up?" she asked, gesturing for him to sit. "Honestly, I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose." "That's a good sign. If you felt comfortable already, I'd be worried." She leaned back in her chair, studying him. "I wanted to update you on the Holbrook situation. The settlement documents were filed this morning. We're establishing a compensation fund of $420 million for affected workers and their families." Jackson let out a low whistle. "That's significant. It's what they deserve. But more than that, we're implementing new safety protocols across every subsidiary. Independent audits quarterly, direct reporting lines for safety concerns that bypass management and come straight to the executive level. I don't want something like this happening ever again on my watch. That's going to require oversight and enforcement." "Yes, it is, which is partly why I created your position. Security isn't just about preventing external threats, Jackson. It's about creating a culture where people feel safe to report problems, where safety is prioritized over profits, where someone with your instincts is empowered to say no when something doesn't feel right. That's a lot of responsibility. You can handle it. You've already proved that." She paused, then added, "I also wanted you to know that I visited the Kemp brothers yesterday, in jail." Jackson straightened in surprise. "You did?" "I needed them to hear directly from me that their father's death mattered. That the settlement isn't just about legal liability, it's about acknowledging that what happened to Robert Kemp and the other workers was wrong. Preventable, inexcusable." "How did they react?" "Travis broke down. Nathan was angrier, more resistant. But I think they both heard me. I told them I wasn't excusing what they did, but I understood the desperation that drove them to it. I told them that when they get out, if they want jobs, I'll personally ensure they have opportunities. Not at Westbridge necessarily, but somewhere." Jackson shook his head in amazement. Most CEOs would write them off completely. Most CEOs didn't have someone willing to put his life on the line to protect them. You showed me what real courage looks like, Jackson. The least I can do is try to match it in my own way. That evening, Jackson picked Emma up from school and took her shopping for professional clothes. He needed suits for his new role, dress shirts, appropriate shoes. Emma appointed herself as fashion consultant, vetoing anything she deemed too boring or old-fashioned. Dad, you're an executive now. You need to look like someone who's in charge, not someone who's apologizing for being in the room. I don't apologize for being in rooms. You kinda do, though. You've spent so long trying to blend into the background that you've forgotten how to stand out. But this job requires you to stand out. They settled on 3 new suits, a collection of shirts and ties, and shoes that cost more than Jackson typically spent on clothes in 6 months. Emma insisted on taking pictures to show her friends, claiming her dad was having a makeover montage worthy of a movie. You know what would make this complete, Emma said as they loaded shopping bags into the car. If you actually went on a date sometime, really embrace this whole new life chapter. Slow down there, one major life change at a time. I'm just saying, you're going to be working with all these executive types now. Surely there's someone worth asking to dinner. Emma, fine, I'll back off. But the offer to help you set up a dating profile stands whenever you're ready. Noted and filed away in the never happening category. She laughed and changed the subject, but Jackson thought about what she'd said. The idea of dating felt strange, almost disloyal, even though Sarah had been gone for 6 years. But maybe that was part of this transition too. Not just a new job, but permission to imagine a different future. One where he wasn't defined solely by loss and responsibility, but by possibility and growth. The following Monday, Jackson walked into Westbridge Tower in one of his new suits, his security badge replaced with an executive access card. People who used to just nod at him in passing now stopped to congratulate him. Junior executives who'd barely registered his existence suddenly wanted to introduce themselves. It was disorienting and humbling and exciting all at once. His first official act as Executive Director of Security and Risk Assessment was to call a meeting with his entire team, 23 security personnel from across all shifts. Facilities managers and IT security specialists crowded into the conference room on the 60th floor. Jackson stood at the head of the table, looking at the faces watching him with a mixture of curiosity and respect. I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers, he began. 2 weeks ago, I was checking badges at the front desk. Now I'm standing here in a suit that cost more than my monthly rent, responsible for security operations I'm still learning about. That's terrifying, honestly. A few people chuckled, and he saw some of the tension leave the room. But here's what I do know. I know that security isn't about following procedures blindly. It's about paying attention, trusting your instincts, and having the courage to act when something feels wrong. Every single person in this room has instincts worth listening to. My job isn't to micromanage you or second-guess your decisions. It's to create an environment where your expertise is valued and your concerns are taken seriously. He paused, making eye contact with different people around the table. What happened last week could have ended very differently. A CEO could have been kidnapped or killed. But it didn't happen because someone paid attention to a detail that seemed small. A tattoo. That's the level of awareness I want us to cultivate across every property we protect. Not paranoia, but mindfulness. Not fear, but preparedness. Hunter raised his hand. What's your priority for the first month? Getting to know each of you and understanding our current vulnerabilities. I'll be visiting every property we oversee, meeting with every team member, reviewing every protocol. And I want feedback. If something doesn't make sense, if a procedure seems inefficient, if you see gaps in our coverage, I want to know about it. 3 months into his new role, Jackson had settled into a rhythm that felt challenging but sustainable. The executive training had been intense, but valuable, teaching him management strategies and leadership techniques he'd never encountered in his previous work. He'd visited all 15 properties under Westbridge Financial's umbrella, from office towers to manufacturing facilities to research centers. Each location had its own unique security challenges, and Jackson found himself energized by the variety. He implemented new training protocols, upgraded surveillance systems, and most importantly, created channels for security personnel at every level to report concerns directly to his office without fear of retaliation. Emma had adjusted to his new schedule better than he'd expected. Yes, there were more late nights and occasional emergency calls, but they still had dinner together most evenings. She'd started applying to colleges, and the financial security of his new position meant she could consider schools that would have been financially impossible before. On a Tuesday afternoon in February, Jackson received a call from Detective Bowen. "Sullivan, thought you'd want to know the Kemp brothers accepted a plea deal this morning. Travis got 3 years with possibility of parole after 18 months. Nathan got 5 years due to the assault on the police officers. Could have been much worse given the charges they were facing." That's good news, I think. It is. The judge took into account Miss Daniels declining to press kidnapping charges and the circumstances surrounding their actions. The prosecutor's office also received letters from 43 families affected by the Holbrook contamination, all asking for leniency. Turns out the Kemp brothers have a lot of support in that community. After hanging up, Jackson walked down to Lily's office. Clara waved him through, and he found Lily reviewing architectural plans for a new building project. Detective Bowen just called. The Kemp brothers took a plea deal. Lily set down the plans, her expression thoughtful. "I heard. My lawyers called an hour ago. 3 and 5 years respectively. You did the right thing, not pursuing the kidnapping charges." "Did I? Sometimes I wonder. They committed serious crimes, put people at risk. Pointing a gun at someone, even in desperation, crosses a line." "It does. But you also recognize that they were driven by grief and a system that failed them. Mercy isn't the same as excusing what they did. My father used to say that justice without compassion is just revenge in a suit and tie." She smiled slightly. "I think he'd approve of how this was handled. Speaking of which, the first round of Holbrook compensation payments went out last week. I've been monitoring any potential security issues related to it, but so far the response has been overwhelmingly positive. $420 million buys a lot of positive response. It's not just the money, it's the acknowledgement. You gave those families something more valuable than a settlement. You gave them validation that their suffering mattered." Lily stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. "Do you ever think about how random it all is? If you hadn't noticed that tattoo, if you hadn't trusted your instincts, everything could have gone so differently. Not just for me, but for the Kemp brothers, for all those families waiting for justice." "I think about it constantly," Jackson admitted. The chain of small decisions that led to that moment. Richard Hayes mentioning his military service tattoo in casual conversation months ago. Me actually paying attention and remembering it. The Kemp brothers choosing impersonation over some other approach. All these tiny dominoes falling in exactly the right sequence. Makes you believe in fate. Or just the importance of paying attention. Lily turned back to him. "How's the family counseling program coming along?" This was one of Jackson's initiatives, something he'd proposed after learning more about the Holbrook situation. Westbridge now offered free counseling services to families of any employee who died from workplace-related causes going back 10 years. It was a small gesture in the grand scheme of things, but it mattered. We've had 73 families reach out so far. The response has been incredible. A lot of people just need someone to talk to, someone to acknowledge that their loss was real and significant. That was a good idea, Jackson. I wish I'd thought of it years ago. You're thinking of it now. That's what matters. A comfortable silence settled between them, the kind that develops between people who've been through something significant together. Can I ask you something personal? Lily said. Of course. Do you ever regret taking this job? The longer hours, the added stress, the weight of responsibility. Jackson considered the question carefully. There are hard days. Days when I'm exhausted and miss the simplicity of just checking badges and monitoring cameras. But regret? No. This job has challenged me in ways I didn't know I needed. It's given Emma and me financial security I never thought we'd have. And it's allowed me to make changes that actually matter. To prevent the kind of tragedy that drove the Kemp brothers to desperation. I'm glad. Because I can't imagine doing this without you now. You've become indispensable, Jackson. Not just as security director, but as someone I trust completely. Before Jackson could respond, his phone buzzed with an alert. He checked it quickly, his expression shifting to concern. What is it? Lily asked. Security breach at the research facility in Parkview. Attempted unauthorized access to the server room. The team detained someone, but they're asking for guidance on protocol. Within minutes, they were on a conference call with the Parkview facility manager and security team. Jackson asked pointed questions, assessed the threat level, and made decisions that came naturally now after 3 months of practice. The situation was resolved within 20 minutes, with the intruder identified as a former contractor with a grudge, rather than any serious corporate espionage attempt. Nice work, Lily said after the call ended. You handled that perfectly. I had good people on the ground doing the actual work. I just connected the dots and made the call. That's leadership, Jackson. Trusting your team and making decisive calls when needed. That evening, Jackson met Emma for dinner at a restaurant near her school. She'd texted him earlier, asking if they could talk about college decisions, and he could tell from her message that something was weighing on her. So, she said once they'd ordered, I got accepted to Cornell. Emma, that's amazing. Congratulations. Thanks. But there's something else. I also got accepted to Metro State with a full academic scholarship. Jackson understood immediately. Cornell was prestigious and far away, requiring significant financial investment despite his improved salary. Metro State was local, affordable with the scholarship, and would let Emma stay close to home. You're worried about leaving me alone, he said gently. I mean, kind of. You've got this whole new career thing happening, and you're still adjusting, and I feel like maybe I should stay local for a while. Be around in case you need me. Emma, listen to me. I want you to choose the school that's best for you, not the one that's most convenient for me. If Cornell is where you want to go, then that's where you should go. But what about you? I'll be fine. Better than fine, actually. I've got a job I love, colleagues I respect, and the financial security to visit you whenever I want. Besides, you've been taking care of me for long enough. It's time for you to focus on your own life. I haven't been taking care of you. You have, though. You've been my anchor, Emma. My reason to keep going when things were hard. But you know what? I'm stable now. Genuinely stable, maybe for the first time since your mom died. And that means you're free to fly as far as you want to go. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I'm going to miss you so much. I'm going to miss you too. But we'll talk every day, and I'll visit, and you'll come home for holidays. And when you graduate, I'll be in the front row cheering louder than any other parent there." They spent the rest of dinner talking about Cornell, about her major options, about roommate selection and campus life. Emma's excitement grew as they talked, her earlier worry fading as she allowed herself to imagine the future without guilt. When Jackson got home that night, he found himself in front of the photo album again, looking at pictures of Sarah. He imagined what she'd think of everything that had happened. The job offer, the Kemp brothers, Emma getting into Cornell. All of it. He thought she'd be proud. Proud of how they'd survived her loss, of how Emma had grown into such a thoughtful and caring person, of how he'd finally taken a chance on something bigger than his comfortable routine. "We're going to be okay," he said quietly to the photo. "Emma's going to Cornell. I'm actually good at this executive thing. We're going to be okay." The next morning, Jackson walked into Westbridge Tower with renewed purpose. He had meetings scheduled with department heads, a site visit to plan for the following week, and a proposal to write about enhanced background check procedures for contracted services. As he rode the elevator to the 60th floor, he thought about the Kemp brothers serving their sentences, about Robert Kemp and the other workers whose suffering had finally been acknowledged, about Lily Daniels choosing integrity over convenience, about Emma preparing to start her own adventure. All of it connected, a web of decisions and consequences and second chances. The elevator doors opened, and Jackson stepped out into his new life, ready for whatever came next. 6 months had passed since that Tuesday morning when Jackson Sullivan noticed a tattoo that didn't belong. The incident had become something of a legend within Westbridge Financial, the story retold in break rooms and executive meetings as an example of the importance of attention to detail and trusting your instincts. But for Jackson, it was simply the moment that changed everything. He stood in his office on the 58th floor, looking out at the newly completed Security Operations Center that stretched across the entire wing. 12 monitoring stations, a tactical planning room, a training facility, and offices for his growing team of 32 security professionals. It was more than he'd ever imagined when he first took the job. Hunter Tate knocked on the open door. "Got a minute, boss?" "Always. What's up?" "Just got word from Parkview facility. They've completed the new access control system installation. Want to schedule a site visit to review the protocols? How about next Tuesday? And Hunter, I want you to lead that inspection. You've earned the autonomy." Hunter grinned. "Appreciate that. I'll set it up." After Hunter left, Jackson checked his watch. He had a lunch meeting scheduled with Lily, something that had become a monthly tradition. They'd meet at a quiet restaurant downtown, review security matters, and talk about broader company initiatives. But more than that, they'd become genuine friends, bound by the shared experience of that terrifying day and the choices they'd both made in its aftermath. The restaurant was busy when Jackson arrived, but they had a corner table reserved. Lily was already there, reviewing something on her tablet. "Working through lunch again?" Jackson said as he sat down. "Some habits are hard to break." She put the tablet away and smiled. "How's Emma? All settled at Cornell?" "She loves it. Called me last night to complain about her roommate's taste in music, which apparently means everything is going great. If she wasn't complaining about something, I'd be worried." "And how are you handling the empty nest?" Jackson considered the question. The apartment in Oakmont Heights felt bigger without Emma, quieter in ways that sometimes unsettled him. But it was a different kind of quiet than the grief-stricken silence after Sarah died. This was the silence of possibility, of a chapter ending and a new one beginning. "I'm adjusting." Turns out I actually enjoy having time to myself. I've started going to the gym in the mornings, joined a book club that meets on Thursdays. Small things, but they feel significant. A book club? Jackson Sullivan, you're becoming downright social. Don't spread it around. I have a reputation to maintain. They ordered lunch, and Lily's expression grew more serious. I got a letter last week from Travis Kemp. Jackson set down his water glass. What did it say? He's doing well in prison, apparently. Taking college courses, working in the library. He wanted to apologize again for what he and his brother did. And he wanted to thank me for the settlement, for acknowledging what happened to their father. That took courage, writing that letter. He also asked if the job offer still stood. When he gets out in 6 months, he wants to work, to rebuild his life. Are you going to honor it? I am. I've already spoken to our HR director about it. Travis will start in our facilities maintenance department. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work with room for advancement. And I'm going to personally ensure he has access to counseling and support services. Jackson shook his head in admiration. You could have easily ignored that letter. Most people would have. Most people didn't have someone willing to draw a weapon to protect them because a tattoo looked wrong. You showed me what real vigilance looks like, Jackson. The least I can do is show the same commitment to rehabilitation and second chances. Their food arrived, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Lily talked about a new acquisition the company was considering, asking for Jackson's input on security implications. He appreciated that she valued his opinion beyond just tactical matters, that she saw him as a strategic partner rather than just the head of security. There's something else I wanted to discuss, Lily said as they finished their meal. The board approved my proposal to create a corporate ethics oversight position. Someone whose sole job is to monitor subsidiary operations, investigate safety concerns, and ensure we never have another Holbrook situation. That's a smart move. I want you to help me interview candidates. Your instincts about people are exceptional, and this role requires someone with integrity and courage. Sound familiar? I'll make time. When do you want to start the process? Next month, but there's no rush. I want to find the right person, even if it takes a while. As they left the restaurant, Lily paused on the sidewalk. Can I tell you something? That day, when you pulled your weapon and stopped that car, I was terrified. Not just of the situation, but of how close I'd come to disaster without even knowing it. But what scared me more was realizing how many other threats I wasn't seeing, how many vulnerabilities existed that I'd been ignoring. You can't see everything. That's impossible. No. But I can build a team of people who see things I miss. That's what you've done with the security department. You've created a culture where people feel empowered to speak up, where observations matter, where instinct is valued as much as protocol. That's what good security should be. It's what good leadership should be. And you've become an exceptional leader, Jackson. I hope you know that. Jackson felt a surge of gratitude and pride. 6 months ago, he'd been a security guard checking badges. Now he was shaping policy, managing teams, and making decisions that affected thousands of people. The transformation still felt surreal sometimes, but it also felt right. That evening, Jackson video called Emma. She answered from her dorm room, textbooks spread across her desk in organized chaos. Hey, Dad. How was your day? Good. Had lunch with Lily, reviewed some new protocols. Nothing too exciting. How about you? I aced my economics midterm, and I joined the debate team. Our first competition is next month, and I was thinking maybe you could come watch? I'll be there. Just send me the details." They talked for 20 minutes about her classes, her friends, her adjustment to college life. Jackson could hear the confidence in her voice, the excitement about her future. This was what he'd been working toward all these years, not just keeping her safe, but giving her the foundation to thrive. After they hung up, Jackson walked to his window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Travis and Nathan Kemp were serving their sentences, thinking about the choices that had led them to that moment. Richard Hayes was back at work, driving Lily to and from the office with a new appreciation for routine normalcy. 43 families affected by the Holbrook contamination were receiving compensation and counseling, their suffering finally acknowledged. All of it connected back to one moment, one observation, one decision to act. Jackson thought about the speech he'd given to his security team on his first day, about paying attention, trusting instincts, having courage to act when something felt wrong. Those principles had guided him for 12 years at a security desk, and they guided him still in his executive role. The only difference now was scale and impact. His phone buzzed with a security alert from one of the properties. Minor issue, already being handled by the on-site team, but protocol required executive notification. Jackson reviewed the report, approved the response plan, and made a note to follow up in the morning. This was his life now. Challenges and responsibilities that would have overwhelmed him 6 months ago, but felt manageable now. More than manageable, actually. They felt purposeful. Jackson pulled out his phone and opened the photo of Sarah he kept there. "I think we did okay," he said quietly. "Emma's thriving. I'm growing. We're going to be all right." And for the first time since losing her, he truly believed it. The city hummed below, millions of people going about their lives, unaware of the security systems and vigilant professionals working to keep them safe. Unaware of the single father who'd noticed a wrong tattoo and changed everything. Jackson smiled, closed the photo, and turned back to his desk. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new opportunities to make a difference. He was ready. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.